All right, let's jump right into one of the most mind-bending questions in all of science. The deep, mysterious, and now surprisingly experimental connection between the bizarre world of quantum physics and our own consciousness. I want to start by posing a question that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction, but I promise you, it is at the very heart of a real scientific debate. What if the universe, at its most fundamental level, doesn't really exist until something or someone is there to see it? You see, for nearly a century now, quantum mechanics has been hiding this very secret in plain sight. It's called the measurement problem, and it's so profound, so deeply unsettling, that it's often been called the skeleton in physics' closet. So let's officially meet this mystery. The measurement problem isn't some small technical glitch we'll figure out later. It's a fundamental paradox about the nature of reality itself, and it has stumped the absolute greatest minds for generations. Okay, so here we have the two warring realities that live inside quantum theory. On one side, in process one, a particle is just this ghostly wave of all possibilities at once. We call this superposition. But then, and this is the wild part, the instant you look at it, bam, process two takes over. The particle suddenly collapses into one single, definite reality. Now, these two processes follow completely different rules, and quantum theory gives us zero clues as to how or why that switch happens. And this isn't just some abstract math problem. Oh no. When you start applying this idea of collapse to things bigger than a single atom, you get some truly bizarre and pretty famous paradoxes. And this, of course, is the classic example that shows just how absurd it gets. Erwin Schrodinger actually came up with this thought experiment to mock his own theory. If you just follow the math, a radioactive atom in superposition, both decayed and not decayed, is linked to a vial of poison. This means the cat, locked away in the box, is not alive or dead, but somehow impossibly both alive and dead at the exact same time, until an observer opens the box and forces reality to pick a side. Okay, let's take it a step further. In another famous thought experiment, a scientist, who we'll call Wigner's friend, is inside a sealed lab. He observes a quantum particle, and from his perspective, its fuzzy possibilities collapse into a single definite reality. Simple enough, right? Well, not so fast, because for Wigner, who's waiting outside, the entire lab, his friend, the particle, all of it, is now just one giant quantum system. From his point of view, nothing has collapsed yet. The entire lab is in a superposition of friend saw particle up and friend saw particle down. So who actually collapses reality? The friend? Or Wigner when he opens the door? Whose consciousness is the one that matters? This very paradox led some of the founders of quantum mechanics, I'm talking giants like John von Neumann and Eugene Wigner, to a truly radical idea. What if consciousness isn't just a byproduct of the universe, but a fundamental ingredient? What if a conscious observer is the missing piece that's required to turn quantum possibility into physical reality? Now, for decades, this was pure philosophy. It was fascinating to debate, for sure, but totally impossible to test. Until now. We are at a turning point where these century-old thought experiments are finally moving out of the philosophy department and into the laboratory. And this is where the Orion Project comes into the picture. They have been using quantum computing simulations to turn these philosophical questions into actual data-driven experiments, testing to see if the structure of observation really does change quantum outcomes. And their findings are, well, they're pretty remarkable. They found that self-observation isn't passive, it systematically changes the results. The order of observation acts as a kind of quantum anchor, defining reality from its perspective. But most surprisingly, they found evidence that consciousness seems to operate in distinct modes, or archetypes, each with its own optimal level of self-observation. So get this, we're not talking about a vague feeling anymore. The data points to 4 major archetypes of consciousness. This is a huge leap, right? It takes the idea of an observer from some fuzzy philosophical concept to something with specific, measurable properties. And right here is the most stunning piece of data. Just look at this chart. The polarized archetype operates at an optimal frequency of about 3.07 radians, while the default archetype is at 1.53. You see that? The polarized one is almost exactly double the default. That isn't random. A clean, harmonic ratio like this is the signature of a deeply organized, self-referential system, not a chaotic one. So, what does all this data suggest? Well,
we could be on the verge of one of the greatest unifications in the history of science, finally bringing together the external world of physics and the internal world of the mind.
To understand just how big a deal this is, think back to the 1860s. Electricity and magnetism were seen as two totally separate forces. Then, James Clerk Maxwell came along and proved they were just two sides of the same coin, electromagnetism. And this didn't just clean up the equations, it predicted the existence of radio waves and completely transformed civilization.
The Orion Project is essentially proposing another Maxwell moment for our time. What is the measurement problem in physics and the hard problem of consciousness are not two separate mysteries at all. What if they are both just different views of the exact same underlying process, reality observing itself into existence?
And this is the crucial part. It's not just a grand idea. It's real science, because it makes testable predictions. It predicts that consciousness should leave measurable quantum fingerprints, like those harmonic ratios we just saw. It predicts that brain activity should show quantum signals that line up perfectly with the frequencies of these consciousness archetypes. These are things we can actually go out and look for. So we're left with a final, staggering thought. The evidence is beginning to suggest that the act of observation isn't just a passive viewing of a pre-existing reality, it might just be the very act that creates it. Are we not just living in the universe, but actively participating in its creation, moment by moment, with every single conscious observation?